Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I welcome you once again to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We're always happy to come to you and bring you life-changing and empowering business information. And my guest today is Mr. Dr. Bryan. Apologies, I nearly said Mr. Dr. Bryan Keitsemang. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we've moved here to Nona's today in this makeshift studio, but kindly tell the viewers who you are, share a little bit about your background.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Bryan Keitsemang. I was born 23 years ago to loving parents, a legit gentleman, Mr. Baipopedi Moalusi, and my mother, the ever beautiful and the most creative person I know, Mema Thomola Moalusi. Loving parents who have always raised me to believe that my voice matters, Ramogobe, which is why even when my mother when my parents got married, I was given the choice to decide, say, are you taking your paternal grandfather's surname as your name, your paternal grandfather's name as your surname,
which is
Keitsemang, or are you taking Moalusi, my paternal grandfather's name, as your surname? And I decided I should take Keitsemang as my last name, and my parents respected that, which is why I am a Keitsemang in the family Yahora Moalus. So it. I grew up pretty much as as an only child. I only had my little sister when I was around 16, I think. So growing up as an only child, I was lonely most of the times. And of course, books were my only friends. I read everything from the moment I knew how to. And it felt magical to me, just how a word could be put after another word to create a picture in a person's mind. So which is why at one point I decided I would have to repay a favor to books by writing books and doing it all, also trying to stay loyal to a faith I had inherited from my parents. But in a nutshell,
stay loyal in what sense?
Stay loyal in the sense that, well, my father is a pastor. For starters, my father is a pastor, and I was raised in a Christian household. But fact remains, I was only trying to keep a belief in a God I had inherited. So at one point I had to decide what defined Bryan Keitsemang, and I had to define pieces that were authentically myself, and I had to get rid of pieces I felt were infused within myself from outside. So basically that is me.
All right. To me, you are in the process of becoming a mogul, if you're not a mogul already. Is that a fair description?
Well, my imposter syndrome tells me I do not deserve such a title yet.
Yes.
But I am proud of the work I've put in. I mean, I wrote my first book at when I was only 9 when I wrote Daniel the Prince, which was my first novel. It was a masterpiece. I'm kidding. It was filled with gross grammatical spelling errors as well.
What was the title?
Daniel the Prince. It was a story of a prince who wanted to avenge the death of his parents, which were of course caused by the evil aunt. So basically, I think the Midweek Sun even went to the extent of calling me a child prodigy. I wasn't so sure about that as well. But what I am certain about for sure is the fact that I love writing. And even if you were to strip away the fortune as well as the little fame that came with it, I would still be found somewhere in a corner with a notebook and a pen writing my brains out.
What birthed the interest? What birthed the dream to become a writer? Or
Well-
how was it birthed? Put it that way.
Well, I guess reading led me to writing. Reading led me to writing. Like I said, I read books. I spent a lot of time entertaining books as my friends. So at one point, I also had a lot of things I wanted to say. Are you following? As a kid, I spoke a lot. I spoke a lot and very fast because I felt like I always had something I wanted to say. But a kid like that isn't a kid everybody wants around, so sometimes I felt the best, the paper was a wonderful listener. Yeah, the paper was a wonderful listener. I would pour my
So it
heart.
was initially an outlet.
It was an outlet because even so the case, I was very secretive in the kind of things I wrote about myself then. Yeah, which is why I wrote fiction from a very young age, because I wanted to communicate things I really wanted to say, but never really had the strength to say them to an audience. So I was led to writing. Writing served as a loyal companion, and it all unfolded.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the success of your first novel, The Valor of Acceptance. First, explain the title, and can you describe to us the success in terms of numbers?
In terms of numbers, then, if I am to speak in terms of numbers, it means a smart somebody somewhere will punch the calculator and try to see the money that came with that. And I'd rather count the blessings before I count the money. Yeah. But it's a special book to me in the sense that it introduced me to the world. The Valor of Acceptance was my way of trying to make peace with my childhood. At the snap of a finger, I was only 6. At the snap of a finger, I had to have the woman I had thought was my mother change from my mother to be my grandmother, and the woman I had thought was my sister change from being my sister to be my mother, and the man I had thought, had Papa as his name, was actually my father. So I had to learn of all those, and I had to learn
What
of...
happened at 6 that enlightened you?
Well, I was to start my grade 1 in Mogobe Primary in Buteti, because my grandmother wanted me to go to school there. But I guess that was when they had a conversation, my parents and my maternal grandmother, Megabwete Lezopono, a wonderful woman. Yeah. And the conversation was, I think I don't remember much, but I think I must have overheard it as a kid, and it was about something of that sort. But I didn't take much, I didn't put much interest in it until one day then my grandmother was preparing me. I got dressed in my Christmas clothes. I wondered, is it Christmas yet? And I was told it's not Christmas. You're actually going to live with your parents in Letakani. So that was that. The confusion then came from there. There was also, I think, anger that also came with it. But I was a kid, and I had to learn of my relationship with my parents in a new format. But they had always been present, just that it had never been clear to me that they were my parents. In a way, in the end, I was grateful for the arrangement, even though back then I did not see it as an element to give gratitude for.
So the Valor of Acceptance explains all this.
The Valor of
It's
Acceptance.
autobiographical.
It's autobiographical. It speaks to the supremacy of acceptance. I was angry as a kid over the whole arrangement, but then I had to put myself in a position of saying, well, it happened, and they did what they did because they knew what they knew then. You see, to accept that. And it also goes on to, detail my leadership ordeals as a student president. As
Where?
well. I was student president from Form 1 up to Form 5 in 3 different schools. Yeah, from when I was doing my Form 1, I was elected president in Mutsumi CJSS, Molateng. And then I transferred from Mutsumi to Orapa, got elected the school's 3rd president, then went to Matis Bay, got elected the school's 7th president. Yeah, so I guess now you could also understand why I am studying, excuse me, political sciences and public admin, because, politics, my love for politics has always been unfathomable.
Maybe that's a good segue to ask a little bit about your academic background, because we didn't touch on that.
Yes. I am currently studying political sciences and public administration at the University of Botswana. I'm doing my final year. Dr. Bryan Keitsemang, which is why I say that once
doing
more.
Doing a final year in a bachelor degree?
Bachelor degree. I say that to put emphasis on it, to say that, well, I hold my PhD today, but without even having a bachelor's degree, which is what makes me grateful. I've always been grateful to a board of trustees in Words Measures Literary College.
Where is that?
In Namibia, which found it relevant to bestow upon me an honorary doctorate. Yes, sir.
So what does that mean, really? It means that you had impressed them with what? With your writing?
I was told the doctorate came in recognition of my leadership in literature and the public space, particularly my inclusive writing, in the sense that, well, controversy has always followed my writing.
Yes.
And as controversy followed my writing, I think it comes to the fact that I try to speak to the plurality that makes a society.
Yes.
Are you following? So I guess in that manner then, it impressed them. But only they can say better what about my writing really impressed them. Yeah. At the end of the day, awards and accolades come in different...
So they gave you a PhD at a time you had written how many books?
I'd written 8. This happened last year, and I was only 22 years old.
Oh,
yeah, and
okay.
I was only 22 years old.
Okay, so are you not the youngest PhD ever?
I am not sure. I am not sure, but I know. Well, for sure, I am grateful.
Yes.
For the chance.
Okay, so what was your interaction with them that they recognized you in this manner?
They reached out to me. I did not believe it when I got sent an email, because I thought it was a prank of some sort. I only believed it when I held my certificate and was like, oh my God, it really is real. Yeah. And I think that also speaks to, I may be confident in many other aspects of my life and all that, but I am quite harsh on myself, especially when it comes to, my achievements and even when the discussion of my writing comes into the scene. So I did not believe it, because somehow I felt I did not think I deserved it in a way. I beat myself up on it. But I am learning, and I am trying to get to that point in my life, where I get to be proud of my achievements unashamedly, as well as, just be in a position to celebrate myself before the entire world starts a show on it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You became an accomplished writer at age 18. How did you manage to do that?
Well, it all goes back to the Valor of Acceptance, my first book, because I was barely 18 when it was published, as I've already indicated. And, I had written. I knew from a young age, of course, that writing was what I wanted to do with my life. But I was never certain I'd ever get published, you see. But at one point, and this I owe so much to the encouragement of my parents, the gentle encouragement of my parents. Because at one point, they pushed it forward to say that we think it's time the world got to know of your writings and all that. I had to consider which way and which format I wanted to publish. I thought of traditional publishing. I thought of self-publishing. I could not go for self-publishing because already my parents were trying to recover from, my medical bills and all that. And self-publishing is quite an expensive field to go into. So I wrote to, different publishers in South Africa, in Botswana, and got rejected monumentally. It was painful. Yeah. Until one point when I think this was at a time when I was even losing hope. I was even trying to divorce.
What are the grounds? What are they rejecting you for?
I was told my work was mediocre to start with. I was told I had to find more ways to hone my craft. Are you following? I mean, I was a little kid.
It didn't
then.
make sense.
It didn't make sense to me because I believed in my writing then, you see. And to be told your writing is mediocre and it's not to the standard we want to publish was quite shattering for a fragile 17-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was enough to get me losing hope until, and I guess that was when my parents saw this, and my father came to me one time and he said, you know, I believe in your writing, and I have full trust that once your book is published, it will bring all beautiful things your way. He said, that was heartwarming. My heart melted even more when he said they had decided they would loan me money to self-publish my book. He made it clear that it wasn't a gift, but a loan I had to repay back with interest. Yeah, I was excited. I was like, well, this is something I can do. So we found a self-publishing firm in the US. They published the Valor of Acceptance. The downside of self-publishing is that you become your own everything. You become your publicist, you become your marketing manager. I was excited. I thought I could pay my father back, but I had overlooked this aspect. I was a student who also had a debt to pay. So, which is why I had to think fast. I am reminded of how after my Saturday study in Mattis Bay College, I would go to hotels, you know, and ask for a list of conferences and seminars that were hosted in those hotels. And I would try to find seminars which spoke closely to the themes I had written about. And I would go to those seminars.
With your books?
With my book, of course.
Yeah, to sell.
Yeah, not with the intention to sell. Getting there, then, you know, I would ask for a few minutes to speak to the audience. At the podium, the intention was not to sell my book, but rather, you know, to share me and my passion for what I did. And I think it worked because normally, naturally, after I had finished speaking, then the audience would want to know as to where they could get more of my story. And they promised to recommend, you know, my books and my story to a community they believed would find meaning in it. And I guess in a way that is just how the Bryan Keitsemang brand started and how it continued to thrive, you know, through word of mouth as well as consistent delivery of
content.
Of content that
Quality content.
Quality content that wasn't divorced from my personality. Yes.
Talk about the second book. What was it and how did it come about?
Well, the second book was Choices of the Heart and Erasable Scars. It was a romance novel.
Choices of the Heart?
Choices of the Heart and Erasable Scars. It was a romance novel. The biggest mistake I ever made as a writer, and in my career as a writer, was to think I could turn the novel into a series. Yeah, because following that, I published Choices of the Heart. The first one was Choices of the Heart, Rings of Love. Yeah, my memory is fraying
it's all
with
right.
it.
It's
yeah,
okay.
Choices of the Heart, Rings of Love.
It's a novel?
A novel. And then the second installment was Choices of the Heart, Unerasable Scars, which I have since depublished.
Because?
Well, I felt like within the book I had tried so hard to impress. Are you following? I was trying so hard to even mimic a few voices of some authors I had looked up to. And I did not like that.
You didn't feel it was authentic?
It wasn't authentic, which is why I have since depublished it and went on to try and stay loyal to a voice I believed spoke with genuine authenticity.
So you stuck with the other one, the Voice of the Heart.
I beg your pardon?
You stuck with the other one. You said there were two.
Yes, sir.
That one was genuine and authentic. Yeah.
That one was genuine because I remember writing it, and primarily I was writing it for me, and I didn't care much what how people would see it. So, which is what made it authentic, and an element I believe could be found in all of my books. You know, the how I stay loyal to my voice as an author. From one book to the next. Okay. Yes, sir.
8 books is a lot. We'll cover 3 and 4. But before you do, you mentioned in passing that you had medical bills to contend with.
Yes,
what was
sir.
the problem?
Well, at one point in my life, I got very sick. It was at a point where the doctors believed I was terminally ill and had about 10 months of life remaining.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was quite painful. It was quite painful, especially, when you have to see the scenes play out in the face of your mother, where she has to make peace with watching her son's breath turn into air, you see. But I guess I just had to find ways to be strong for me. I had to find ways to...
What was the problem?
The doctors suspected I had infections in the brain and many other opportunistic infections that came with those. It was
like a tumor.
Not really, but it was viral encephalitis with, viral encephalitis on its own cannot be fatal, but it gets scary when the viral encephalitis gets coupled with opportunistic infections, which was my case. So this was happening when I was writing my Form 5 for sure, and it caused quite a strain.
Wow.
Not just on my mental health, like I said, also on my parents.
Shame.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, they were trying all they could to save their son and all that. But I have, which is, at the end of it all, I had to return to what gave me comfort the most, and that was writing. I wrote so much about it. In fact, in the Valor of Acceptance, I capture the events that lead to the diagnosis, where I had to battle skull-breaking headaches, and yet the doctors
was
could
it a
not.
migraine or worse than that?
Worse than that. I say skull-breaking for a reason. Yeah, I say skull-breaking for a reason. So in the Veil of Acceptance, I captured that, the journey that leads to the diagnosis, the frustration, the anxiety, as well as then, trying to make peace with it, and just how I had to find a way to breathe life into my own lungs again. Yeah, so I guess in a way, with just that little bit, you can see how cathartic writing is always been.
Am I to understand that instead of focusing on the disease, you focused on the writing?
I focused on the writing because
that helped you.
It helped in the sense that it helped me figure out what I wanted my place to be in the world. Are you following? And it returned me back to the fact that I believed I could be anything I wanted to be, and I believed I could be the best with all I could possibly do. And as the author of my own story, I did not think that was the end of it. You see,
as the 10 months were running, what actually happened? What was going on through your mind? The 10 months that the doctor had given you?
There was anxiety. There was anxiety and also fear of death in a way. Because then it had me looking into the fact that I had never really been a believer. And I was afraid after 10 months, then I will have to face the dead fate, which would be hell. And I guess in that moment, I also had to evaluate my relationship with God and to look into it to say that, I believed what I believed, but I had never seen a God. God did not even show up even when I wanted him to in that moment. So it felt unnatural to me to want to believe in the existence of a God and all that when I was certain I had never seen a God. Yeah, that was the point where I took a step back and said the faith was inherited. And fast forward to a few years later, then that thinking would be what formed the basis of Prayers of an Atheist, my second memoir.
Okay, which is like your third or fourth book, eh?
My seventh.
Yeah,
my seventh.
Okay, and that what's the main theme of that book?
The main theme of the book was, of course, to explore my wranglings with religion, as well as to. In fact, I must make this clear to say that the Prayers of an Atheist was initially written as a letter to my father. In 48 hours, it was written as a letter to my father because I was like, I've always had a lot of things I wanted to share. I've always had a lot of things I wanted to say, but I just never had the language. I had gone through a lot as a child, but I was known to be a man with a single expression, the happy expression.
Yeah, well, the
smile.
beautiful smile.
The beautiful smile. My mother...
Never lose that.
I shall not.
Yeah.
I shall not. My mother takes pride in it. I don't think... She compliments my smile as well as my eyebrows, but I don't think it's in the air that she thinks they make me pretty.
Yeah.
But I think it's because she's just glad of, how her beautiful features turned out on my face. So, I realized that as a child, I had I bottled a lot of things within myself. So the best way to, take them out was through writing, which is why when I believed I had the language to communicate, I decided to write Prayers of an Atheist as the letter to my father, within it detailing my childhood traumas, the molestations, the sexual abuse, as well as just, the anxiety of trying to pull myself out of me.
What would you say is the most sensational thing you said to your father?
Sensational.
Most, sensational, I should say significant.
You have raised me to be... I think I'm trying to capture it in the right wording, because we were speaking in Fire Setswana. So I said to him that he had raised me to know that my voice mattered. I told him that my biggest dream was to go into the world and be something, the next big thing. But I was afraid that I would go into the world and try to be the next big thing, but the world would reject me on the basis of things I could not change about myself. And I told him that wouldn't be what shatters me the most. I told him the worst nightmare would be returning home to find that he was rejecting me as well.
Wow. Whew, that's touching. That's really, really touching.
But my father has always been a legit man.
Yeah.
Although I can say with utmost certainty, it's not all the time that he understands me. But he has assured me that even though I do not understand you, son, I'll always accept you for what
for
you are. For what and who you are.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you're my son, and nothing could take that love away from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the 10 months. How did you get out of it? Because obviously you are here. What happened?
The doctors term it a miracle.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that.
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I believe in miracles.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Plurality of views at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, plurality of views. I realized how I got better when I shifted my focus from Bryan, you are terminally ill and you'll be dead soon, to I want to get better.
And I want to write.
And I want to write more books. I had more books I wanted to write. I had more conversations I wanted to hold. And I guess when my mindset shifted in that manner, then...
Isn't that really the key to life? You are what you focus on. As a man thinketh, so is he.
Most definitely. Most definitely. The power of the mind at the end of the day, the power of the mind. And I think it's something I try to capture so well in my novels as well.
Just to tell us that part, you go to the doctor to check how you're doing.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, they were shocked because for a man who has infections on his brain, and for a man who has a condition that seems determined to outlive him, I seem to be doing very well. I do not suffer from the skull-breaking headaches anymore, and I continue to glow. I continue to write many books.
I don't think you accepted the doctor's diagnosis for 1 minute.
I didn't, and I owe all that to my father because I have inherited the stubbornness from there. So, and I didn't want to. Of course, there was a point I almost did, and then a point where I just had to decide what I wanted the outcome of my life to be, and went with that and stayed loyal to that.
You won a lot of acclaim. You won a lot of awards. Can you share with us some of them beyond the PhD?
I recently won the ALCRA International Prize for Literature.
What is that?
Based in the United States. I was nominated alongside heavyweights like Kazuo Ishiguro, Nobel Prize winners, and it was quite surreal in the fact that, I grew up worshipping Kazuo Ishiguro. In my world, he was a god. And to be mentioned in the same sentence as him was overwhelming in all the good ways, for sure. And to beat him in a contest like that was a dream. Was a dream.
What exactly is the award? That's so people understand.
The award, basically, you have the board of the award choosing any writer anywhere in the world who they feel represents what they stand for, which is literary accomplishment, literary success, and authenticity in that. And I believe when they looked at my writing, because I was nominated for my novel, The Life I Buried, which I wrote. The Life I Buried.
That's novel number?
Novel number 8, which I wrote as Wiseman Molateng. Yes, so I was nominated for the novel.
So why did you use a fake name? There's a proper way of saying it. You use
why did I use a pseudonym?
Pseudonym,
yeah,
yes.
Why I used a pseudonym? I am guessing after, literary acclaim, that was when the imposter syndrome invited itself into my life.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, where I felt like sooner or later somebody would figure out that I wasn't as great an author as everyone thought I was. Yeah, so, and I think it intensified.
Is that self-doubt?
We could say, but I felt like an imposter, because I felt like sooner or later it would all end. And it intensified when I paid attention to what people were saying, the negativity as well as the criticism that came with my writing, which is sometimes controversial. So in that moment, I wondered, because I continued to be celebrated in many forms, and I wondered, were these people really celebrating me for the talent they believed I possessed, or was it something else, solely for the sake of brand identity? I wondered. And I just wanted, unvarnished opinion about my writing, which is why I decided to step out of my name and create a fictitious character, Wiseman Molateng, who would share the accounts of his life. Molateng, who would share the accounts of his life on social media. I was shocked to see how, the inserts Wiseman shared on Facebook went viral. And at one point, I think it got to a point where some people were even considering Wiseman as one of the greatest writers Botswana had ever had.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
and of course the name Wiseman can also impact you psychologically, especially if what you say is powerful.
Most definitely. And I've always wanted my characters to be real.
So this thing, is it the equivalent or comparable to the Nobel, the prize for literature?
In its own right, in a way, because you have an organization which solely decides, we want to honor and empower writers in this space, and the prize comes with that, as well as the opportunities. Are
you willing to disclose the amount?
Let's count the blessings before we count the money.
Yeah. But yes, in other words, no, you're not going to tell us. But
I won't.
But I think it was a significant amount.
It was, and the newspapers did me dirty by putting it out there.
Yeah. You're not going to put it out there.
I won't put it out there this time around. I won't put it out there. I think
it's fair to say you started a small retirement fund.
In a way.
Yeah.
In a way, because the money also helps buy time. Because as a writer, you don't get a salary and you only rely on royalties and all that.
Yes.
So it buys time until the next big blockbuster.
Yes. Okay. So you win this one for literature. Any other awards worth mentioning?
Well, I think this one I am reminded of one my little sister gave me. One my little sister gave me. I do not know where she'd gotten the word inspirational. I thought she was too young to use that word, but she said the most inspirational brother in the world.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's of all the accolades, I think I ranked that one above them all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sure you've put it in a
I have, because she even, she made a drawing, an illustration of all that with me. I was inconceivably scrawny in her illustration, but it's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful art piece.
You touched a lot on trauma, and you mentioned abuse. Are you willing to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well,
Childhood trauma.
Childhood trauma. I guess, yes. Because as a kid, as a child, I think I was molested by 3 different men before I was even 10.
Oh no.
And it was, of course, it leaves you confused. It leaves you angry. But I do not know what it was about the environment I lived in that made me feel, all dirty about it, that made me feel I had to keep it to myself as a little dirty secret of some sort. But in future, I would realize that this came back to haunt me.
I read somewhere that Oprah Winfrey had similar experiences.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I guess then perhaps the curse of acclaim comes with a traumatic childhood.
I hope not, but it seems that way
it
sometimes.
Seems that way. It seems that way. So it was quite traumatic in the sense that, as I grew older, I would lose myself in many people, in alcohol, in sex, in many people, as a way of trying to figure out if I was worth loving. Because at the end of the day, I felt very dirty from what happened to me. I felt guilty of some sort. I do not know why, but I did. But writing prayers of an atheist and sharing parts like that about myself in a way was liberating.
And in your letter to your dad, did you suggest perhaps that he didn't protect you enough?
That wasn't my intention, but I think in a way he read it to be like that, because all this happened many years back, and for him to only find out about them after so many years, I can imagine the strain it kicks in, the anxiety it kicks in into his mental well-being as a father. But my intention was never that. I guess perhaps, but. At the end of the day, it's important to have uncomfortable conversations like this. You see, to have uncomfortable conversations like this. Because
if this sort of abuse are coming from close family members, it's even more traumatic. Was that the case with you?
Yes, but I still keep the identity of the perpetrators a secret, and under the veil of anonymity for the sake of many other aspects that could get tied into the story. But I guess in a way I have also learned of forgiveness from that, acceptance from that, because there's remorse in some of those who did what they did. I see the remorse in their eyes, and that's enough.
So if there's one takeaway you'd give in the context of GBV to other people out there who are going through all this, what would be the takeaway?
Well, gender-based violence, that one has me thinking from a different context. That one has me thinking from a completely different context, because
there's a lot of abuse involved.
A lot of abuse involved, as a matter of fact. But you realize that it all sprouts from a person simply saying, "I loved her to death." Are you following? Sometimes literally, "I loved her to death." Which is what has always made me skeptical about the phrase, "I love you." There's a lot of baggage that comes with that. And I in the inevitable capacity of the word to bloom into the most inconceivably dangerous cactus, especially when it's planted in the wrong person. Perhaps it's because I'm an eternal pessimist that that I see pessimism.
I'm an eternal optimist.
I see.
And you don't seem like an eternal pessimist.
I do not.
Yeah. Well, if you hadn't said it, I wouldn't have believed it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It means I'm doing great at acting. Yeah. So, I see pessimism in something so pure to the world. And I imagine the curse could be in the concept of falling in love. I mean, falling is never a happy experience, and love is not always intimate. Love is possessive, love is jealous, love is obsessive.
Have those elements.
Yes, but I imagine
that won't be true love, I think.
Exactly. But I imagine fondness. When you say I am fond of you to a person, I imagine that to be gentle. I imagine that to be, to carry the ability to say you're safe with me, to say and promise the words you were safe with me. So I think most of abuse comes from that, from people who love genuinely, but then, have the love sprout into something else, a cactus that can bring harm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about writing and entrepreneurship in terms of whether there's a message you can give of how potential writers or even writers can position themselves to really be rewarded for their efforts. Are there any sort of basic guidelines you could share?
My God, I feel so inadequate to answer that one. Because at the end of the day...
Based on your example.
Yes, because at the end of the day, writing speaks to the personality of the writer. Because what is writing if it does not capture the identity of the writer? So I imagine it has to be different for every writer. But the best part of it, or I think what I've found to be constant, is if you have a writer staying true to their voice and delivering that constantly, then all you need to do is to worry about building an audience, a community that appreciates what you say, a community that resonates so well with the themes you cover. And from there, once you have a loyal readership, then it's easier to turn that into a career that sustains you. Because of the loyal readership behind all that I do.
How do you keep them loyal? How do you keep them loyal? How do you cultivate that?
Exactly. I think I keep them loyal because I do not divorce my personality from the brand. I do not divorce my personality from the brand. Every Bryan Keitsemang Books feels and sounds like.
In other words, you're willing to be vulnerable. You're willing to.
I am.
To expose yourself.
I am.
Yeah.
Because when I write, I do not write as a son, a good son. I do not write as a good brother. I do not write as a good citizen. I simply write as a writer. Because I realize that nobody for certain wants to read a book by a good son, because there comes, the subtle push to want to write in the good light when you write as a good son, as a good brother, as a good citizen. But for sure, you'd be interested, say, in reading a book about a good son.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the greatest hoax that you ever pulled, Wiseman Molateng. Of course, we touched on it, but I want the insights and the lessons in terms of how you managed to pull it off.
My God.
And why do you call it the biggest hoax?
Well, the parrot online called it the biggest host. Yeah, they called it the biggest host and
hoax.
Hoax. Yeah, in the country had ever had. Well, the coming about of Wiseman Molateng was, of course, for personal reasons, as I made it clear.
As you explained.
Which, as I explained, I needed unvarnished opinion about my writing. But at one point, in that moment, like I said this in passing earlier. I said I always wanted my characters to be real, and I gave my all into ensuring that Wiseman was that real. I breathed life into Wiseman, and he lived among us. But at one point, we had Wiseman's followers requesting to at least get an image of Wiseman. But I was writing under the account of anonymity, so I was not ready to reveal myself.
They wanted a picture.
They wanted a picture, but I couldn't reveal that because I felt it had not been time. And to buy myself time, I sold the story that Wiseman had survived a debilitating accident, that left his entire face disfigured. Yeah, that bought me time. That bought me time. It was smart. Yeah, but I guess.
How much time it bought you? A year, 2 years?
No, Wiseman lived for about 3 months.
Oh, only.
Only 3 months.
Yeah.
Only 3 months. But
He wreaked so much havoc in 3 months.
a lot can happen in 3 months, Mogobe.
Yeah.
So I guess you know, taking it forward. Then, when I was ready, you know, grateful of the impact Wiseman Molateng had in my life, I had to let him go, which is why I had to kill him. The press release said Wiseman Molateng is dead, because I had to come out and say I was Wiseman Molateng. And Bryan Keitsemang is Wiseman Molateng, and playing myself again, the space would be too crowded. So Wiseman had to die. I did not expect I'd get emotional about it, but I was emotional about the death of Wiseman because, you know, Wiseman had shared.
Because he had also sort of had a personality of his own.
He had a personality of his own, which is why, you know, under the identity of Wiseman, I continue to sponsor, you know, some art exhibitions and even continue to sponsor during the COVID-19 crisis, sponsoring, you know, your indie bookstores, Mompoloki,
So you're speaking from your grave.
Wiseman was speaking from, but Wiseman was alive then. He was alive when he was doing all this, which I think also endeared him to the people. And
even when you accepted the award, which identity did you use?
Well, because Wiseman is dead now.
So when I speak disclosed.
when I speak about Wiseman, I revealed my identity after, like, I felt it had, you know, Wiseman had served his purpose, which was, of course, to speak to me making my career about the writing again. Because I realized at some point I had lost the essence of my writing. You know, I had forgotten the fact that I wrote for me fundamentally. So Wiseman brought me back to say that it was all about you. It was all about you writing your books and them finding their audience in future.
So in terms of the termination of Wiseman 3 months, was that a particular event that caused you to say enough now? Cut.
Well, Wiseman's readership was calling for the release of Wiseman's book, The Life I Buried, into, you know, as a printed book, as paperback. And that would cause troubles, considering that in the copyright page, you have to include the name of the original creator. So it would have, you know, brought in trouble for myself to have
legal trouble.
To have the cover say Wiseman Molateng and have the copyright page say Bryan Keitsemang. So I in that moment I felt it was enough.
So you got legal advice, I guess.
Well,
or just common sense.
Nobody knew about Wiseman Molateng but myself. Even my uncle religiously followed Wiseman Molateng without knowing I was Wiseman Molateng.
He could discuss Wiseman with you.
He could. As a matter of fact, we discussed Wiseman, and I also discussed how Wiseman was a wonderful writer and inspired me a lot.
Yeah. And let me just ask you this: any chance that you'd revive him again for a limited purpose?
Well, following that, of course, we had Wiseman's readers calling for a sequel to The Life I Buried, and me disappointing them with the fact that, well, he's dead, so he cannot come back. But they could look forward to the fact that a Bryan Keitsemang film, which is an imprint of Bryan Keitsemang Books, is adapting The Life I Buried, written by Wiseman Molateng, into a film starring myself as Wiseman Molateng, so they could look forward to seeing Wiseman breathe like that.
Wow. It's fascinating.
Thank you,
Fascinating.
sir. Yeah.
Giving back to the community, I know you are very active. Can you share some of your initiatives?
Well, under Bonelo Jabo Pelotomuchi Foundation, which I founded and I continue to run today.
Formally registered?
Formally registered.
As a
charity organization.
Yes.
Yeah, it's registered as a charity organization. The intention was to, support whatever organization comes with the intention to add a say into the fight against, child abuse, as well as to try and bring more light to the topic surrounding mental health and all that. So that is what we do at Bonelo Jabo Pelotomuchi Foundation, basically to fund those with the intention to do that.
And
Yes.
you're getting involved with contemporary artists. How does that work?
That works with, when we have fine artists, Bataki, Batwansi and all that, and they want to set up their own independent exhibitions and all that, and that requires money sometimes, and that is where now Bryan Keitsemang, the brand, comes in to try and also support that, because I am also a fine artist myself. I think a little bit skilled with pen, so I understand the frustration that could come with wanting your art appreciated in a certain sense, or wanting to bring spotlight to it, and not
So do you
entirely getting that.
then sponsor exhibitions?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
like
Yes,
in museums and tell
not
us more
really,
about that.
Not really museums, because the last one we did was in Mupipi, where we just had local artists, Bata, go to the community hall, and then they had their exhibitions. When we were sponsoring that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't know which novel we've omitted to talk about out of the 8, because Wiseman's was number 7 or 8.
8. I think that was
number 8.
That's my
Okay,
That was my,
and
my
and
latest.
I know that you, as an artist, you probably treat them like children. It's difficult to choose the best one.
Yeah.
But is there a way in which you can rate them and say which one is performing best and so on?
Well, the novel written as Wiseman Molateng, The Life I Buried,
Yes.
turned a modest success into something very startling.
Phenomenal success.
Phenomenal success. It got my name being mentioned among global literary giants, and that was big. Of course, I remain grateful, mostly to the readership that continue to read and recommend my books. But I hold some fondness towards Prayers of an Atheist. Yeah, because I felt that was the book with which I said to the world, listen to me define myself. Yeah, and of course, with all that happened and the events that unfolded, having religious pundits, but not to say that we want to thwart the distribution of the book in local bookstores and all
Here in
that.
Botswana or in America?
In Botswana, as a matter of fact, we had.
Why did they want to?
Because in their phrasing, the book sanctioned rebellion from God. It sanctioned many other immoralities. They mentioned homosexuality, which I interpreted that to be. Of course, like I said, I'm synonymous with controversial writing. I'd expected that to happen. But what bothered me was the way in which they approached it. I respect so much plurality of views.
What way is that? Did they toy against it?
In a way, but they toyed against it from the shadows.
Yeah.
From the shadows. And I remember, to a certain extent, they pushed their agenda forward, because I remember one bookshop in Palapi returning copies of Prayers of an Atheist to my doorstep, which, because they said, well, we could not have a book that's non-religious in our bookstore. And I found it ridiculous, Mogobe. And I speak a lot about this. I speak a lot about free speech, to say that, young minds, and I've said this a lot, young minds need ideas in the books we write in order to grow. They need ideas you disagree with, ideas I disagree with, ideas you find blasphemous, ideas I find stupid. They need these ideas in order to figure out what ideas they agree with.
But does the book really have those themes, homosexuality? Does it promote it, or what does it do?
I must make it clear, Mogobe, that Prayers of an Atheist, as I made it clear from the beginning, was written as a letter to my father. It's a book about my life. I am openly a homosexual man. And as an openly homosexual man, of course, I communicated that to my father within the book, and I also spoke of how I had to divorce my religious ordeals. In the book, it was the book about my life.
Yes.
I would have rather appreciated if they carried, the sentiments of Voltaire when he said, I disagree with what you say, but I would defend
fight to the death
your right
to say it. Yes, that's what he said.
Exactly, because I think that's smart reading. Otherwise it's all this means. of course, I understand that people can get offended by plurality of views, diversity of views, but it's important that people also understand that, being offended is also the occasional price you have to pay for living in an open society.
Yes,
That was good.
yes.
That was very
Yeah, that is a quotable quote.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let us talk about Bryan Keitsemang as a brand in terms of 10, 20, 30 years from now. What do you see unfold
What do I see unfold?
if you had your crystal ball?
Of course, I'd like to continue writing. I don't think I'll ever stop. But I will also let my mind change me if need be. Because I only have one red flag in whatever I do, Mogobe.
Which is?
And that's do I feel like I'm suffocating to fit in. If ever it gets to the point where I feel like in whatever else I do, I feel like I'm suffocating to fit in, I will most definitely divorce that. Yes, sir. But I'm just hoping Bryan Keitsemang lives a fulfilled, happy life.
Okay. Are there any kind of institutions or legacy and that you think of in terms of number of books or academies or institutions you create?
I'd like to build on what I think is a beautiful foundation of the legacy I want to leave behind, which is to give a voice to those told they do not belong. And my book serves as that. My book serves as that as a as a way of saying you're not alone in your struggles. And I know there's comfort that comes with that, which is why my characters, I try to be as empathetic as I possibly could get when I write these novels and create all these characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
What projects are we working on? Do we foresee ourselves surpassing the great book? I'm trying to remember the title now. Prayers of an
Atheist.
Is there? Do you think you can surpass those heights?
Most definitely, because I understand that even the power through which I annotate my talent on paper continues to grow with every book I write.
Okay.
But I understand that is not the case with the readership. It's not the case that the last book I write appeals to them than all the ones that came before it. But I want to continue to diversify as a writer.
Yeah.
My first Setswana novel will be coming out soon.
Wow.
Tlakantsuke ya moroko le mase. Ka Sesarwa ba re ke Gamakai ya moroko le mase.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was executively edited by my mother.
Wow.
A wonderful woman. I mentioned she's the most creative person I know.
Yeah.
So it was it's special to me in that sense.
Likely to come out this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Do let us know when it's about to be launched.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
most definitely.
We're happy to launch it in black or even here.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Time for you to ask me a question, but before you do, there's just one little question that I want to pose. What is your view on gays having children? I know that I just want to stump you with this question.
Yes, sir.
What is your view? Because that's one of the issues that tend to raise a bit of controversy.
Gays having children.
Yes, or raising children.
Raising children. Well, it all goes back to a person's view of a family. And to many, a family is complete with kids. So I think the people that have a problem with that, or that find disgust in that, are arguing from the point that, morality of some sort and all that. What are you teaching kids and all that? But if you have two men raising a kid and they only infusing all this, unnatural traits into that kid. But I don't think that's what parenting is all about. At the end of the day, nobody knows what parenting is all about because there is no formula for parenting. We have kids being raised in heterosexual households and then turning out to be exactly the opposite of what their parents ordered, as a matter of fact. But I say, if at the end of the day, if people feel it completes them as a family, they should be given the right to do that. And if Remo will be a couple somewhere there, to raise kids, and they are a heterosexual couple, that should also be extended forward to batho ba bang ba eleng gore they're in a loving relationship, committed with strong family values. That should also be extended to them to raise kids as well. I honestly don't see the logic in denying them that opportunity.
Interesting point of view. Now it's your turn to ask me a question.
Given a chance, how would Remo Mogobe define his life in 5 words?
In 5 words?
In 5 words.
Normally these questions never stump me, but this one has stumped me because I'm a wordsmith. I speak. I'd like to say consequential, impactful, and inspirational. I'd also, it's 3, right?
Yes, I think we're heading for 4 now. For the 4th one.
And then one of them are in my tagline, which is to inspire, to enthuse, energize, and to empower. So I don't know. You pick one of those.
You've said more than 5.
Yeah, but you pick the other one. Empower. I'm saying for the second time.
I see.
So I'm sure you'll figure something out from there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what I'd like.
I understand.
And
interesting.
Hopefully the good Lord will answer me.
I am told He's faithful to those who believe in Him.
Absolutely.
I do not know. I am told.
Well, I know. I've seen it. Look at that camera, Doctor. And say to that viewer few nice words as a sort of a parting inspirational message based on our discussion.
Go be the best. Go be the best you can possibly be with all that you can possibly do. That's all I can say.
Okay. You want to share your contact details in case people want to carry on with this conversation or perhaps even take advantage of your books and buy them?
Most definitely. You can get in touch with Dr. Bryan Keitsemang on social media, Instagram, Dr_Bryan Keitsemang. On Facebook, you can follow Bryan Keitsemang Books as our Facebook presence right there. And then you can also give a call to 74368013 for whatever discussions you may want to have relating to writing or for whatever appearances you'd want to feature us on. Us being myself and the team that works tirelessly at Bryan Keitsemang Books to try and share with the world stories that matter. Yes, sir.
Wonderful. You've been a great guest and you've shared generously and we appreciate your
Thank you, sir.
coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay.